It's time to talk about it. Was episode 1 really that bad? We're talking Star Wars. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Too Much to Watch. I am your host, Sean. Today we're going to get into a big-time discussion, a controversial discussion, and we're going to talk about, was episode 1 really that bad? Yes, episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Star Wars. We're 20 plus years removed from it. There's a litany of videos across the internet regarding this very topic from back when YouTube started to now. I want to give my thoughts. I've said my piece before to friends and family. I definitely probably was one of the many that disliked this movie for a long time. Having watched it again recently, though, I have to talk about it because I feel like Star Wars fans tend to dump on stuff that's not the original trilogy. And I get it. But there's a lot of great stuff in this movie. And I feel like this movie, and the prequels trilogy in general, definitely gets a bad rap. But particularly this movie, I think there's a worse movie than this. Let's put it that way. In Star Wars, specifically in the prequel series. This movie was doomed to fail, in my opinion, from the word go. When this movie was done, it was 20 plus years after Return of the Jedi. We had vaulted Star Wars into this massive multi-international phenomenon of love and respect towards these movies and what it's done for cinema, what it's done for people, what it's done for their self-worth and all these things. People really stepped into Star Wars more than just a set of movies. This was a culture, and it always has been, and it always will be. What we're getting now we're getting inundated with Star Wars, good or bad. But we didn't have that back then. So as a Star Wars fan, growing up a Star Wars fan, these were the ones that I was able to see in the theater. I'm not old enough to have gone and seen 4, 5, and 6. But I was old enough to go to the theater and see 1, 2, 3. So being able to go see a Star Wars movie in the theater along with everybody else was pretty something special. And a lot of people felt that way going into this. There's a great documentary, The People versus George Lucas, that I feel like definitely hits on those things and kind of says some of the things that I think about now when we kind of talked about the hate of episode 1. And there's a lot of things in that movie to dislike. I feel like the hate for up until the last couple of years has been very much like Jar Jar Binks, things like that. The stuff we all know. But there were some really great things in these movies. And I feel like they're maybe now in lexicon starting to get the attention they deserve. And I feel like it's because of the people that... the younger people, and they were people even younger than me seeing these movies in the theater, particularly episode 1, they didn't have a voice. When episode 1 came out, the people that may have grown up with 1 or 4, 5, and 6 had a voice, could put it out there on whatever internet capability or however they got it out there. They got their hate for this movie and this contempt for this movie out there quickly, but the kids, the people that loved it were kids, and they didn't get a chance to voice what was great. And it's kind of nice now to see that generation start to grow up and have outlets like YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else they can go to say, hey, look, these movies were special to me. Yes, they weren't great, but they were special to me because Star Wars was such a massive thing by then. So kind of getting through that history, some of the things that I really enjoyed about this, obviously, you have some cast in there that's just stellar. I feel like the prequel series kind of faltered in the way of the villains. Obviously, we knew how the whole prequel was going to end with Anakin taking the throne as Darth Vader. But how we get there, the journey of how we got there, probably faltered in some capacities. But having said that, the cast was always incredible to me. Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Liam Neeson. I mean, one of the top things for me of why episode 1 was good was the character of Qui-Gon Jinn and Liam Neeson. I mean, for as maybe kind of slightly under written this movie was, or how like kind of the writing was a little lacking with some of the George Lucas stuff, Liam Neeson really brought greatness to a character that really sets the tone for kind of how Anakin's journey goes. You know, his the way Qui-Gon kind of basically says to the Jedi Council, like, kiss it, and that's why he's never become a full-on Jedi Master, is kind of the way Anakin goes, and either good or bad. Obviously, we see the good in Qui-Gon and why he's taking the chance on Anakin. But you get a stellar performance in at least that one movie with Liam Neeson. He really stood for the good in the Jedi, and he saw the flaws in the Jedi Council. And you had that, and maybe not as fleshed out, and only given one movie, we really didn't maybe get to delve into that contempt for the Jedi Council, because truly everything that's gone on is in part to the Jedi. The Jedi kind of knew the Sith were out there, they knew this was kind of coming up, and didn't really handle it the way it should have been handled. And being the kind of stepping in on sometimes and not stepping in, the Jedi really kind of basically allowed this to go on and allow it to get to where it gets by the end of the third movie. Also, in the same capacity, Ewan McGregor, again, given what was written on the page as a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, eventually when everything happens to Qui-Gon, he kind of has to take the role and more of the brotherly role to Anakin. But it was great to see where he got taught, where kind of how he becomes the Obi-Wan he becomes, and learning himself under Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Liam Neeson. So you get great performance, and throughout the series, throughout the prequels, great performance from Ewan McGregor. I know we're only talking about episode 1 today, but I'm very excited to see what they do with the Obi-Wan series. Great to have him coming back. Fan favorite. He was very excited to be part of it and watching, some of the behind the scenes stuff. So it was really great to have Ewan McGregor and to kind of see the career he's had. So to know that, he had his hand in Star Wars was always pretty great. Probably the best lightsaber battle we've had. There have been great lightsaber battles as far as Clone Wars and some of the animated stuff. But up until that point, you saw very slow-moving lightsaber battles. If you watch the old prequels, the originals, very slow lightsaber battles. Lightsabers were so great. But to have, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon fighting against Darth Maul still holds up. Regardless of what you think of this movie, you can never look back on that and say how, that wasn't that great. That's an incredible performance, incredible stuff with Ray Park and Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor really brought an incredibly well done fight scene, and of course the music that goes with it, or Duel of the Fates. Over top of that, still a sight to behold, and still one of the best, if not the best, lightsaber battle. The Last Jedi with Rey and Kylo was pretty great too, but this one still holds up and still is one of the best. And that includes the Obi-Wan and in episode 3, but Darth Maul, period, was one of the best, if not the best, villains in the entire series as well. I still believe that Kylo Ren is probably the best as far as depth and complexity. Darth Vader, of course, but Darth Maul, and that's where I think the series kind of overall falters, is that they kill off Darth Maul at the very beginning, or at least we think he's killed off. But Darth Maul, Ray Park brings a performance that's pretty great. He's menacing. He's incredibly skilled with lightsabers, and again, an incredibly great physical performance in him when fighting with the sabers and being a force to be reckoned with as far as the Sith goes. I think to let him go and then just have really no apprentice. I know they kind of talk about Dooku and stuff, but I really feel like having him be the apprentice through everything up until, maybe the Emperor turns on him to bring Anakin in because of the rule of 2. Again, we know later on in the Clone Wars and stuff that Darth Maul lives, and he has a great contempt for for the Emperor and what he's done to him. So I think that would have probably hit a little harder than, say, kill him off early in episode 1 and then have nothing really, and then Emperor take over Anakin. So I think that was a big misstep, because I think Darth Maul was a really great character, a really great villain for everybody. I think you take the pod race, take the announcers out of the pod race, one of the best scenes in Star Wars. You hadn't seen anything like that. Very fast paced, very kind of harrowing, especially at the end with Anakin. Obviously, we know Anakin was always going to win. But I think the I think the childness, or the childlike imagery of like the announcers being very, very corny announcers over top of the race itself was pretty, kind of really takes it down a notch for me. But the actual race itself, there's nothing like it. I know Pod Racer is one of the best, or one of the most fun video games for a lot of people, and it really lends itself to watching that scene again. So I think those are my couple of things. I again, go back and watch this movie. I definitely agree with the criticism. The criticism of Jar Jar Binks, I think, is warranted. I think we've heard from George Lucas that he made Jar Jar for kids. The hate for Jar Jar was pretty overwhelming. I know we had comic relief in those originals, but you had him in C-3PO and R2-D2. But it wasn't as corny as what they ended up doing with Jar Jar Binks, of this kind of the silliness of him, especially Jar Jar fighting in the final battle on Naboo, where he just kind of clunks his way and fumbles his way through taking down tanks and stuff. I just think is so childish and so silly. And if you're going to use Jar Jar later on, and later on in the trilogy, Jar Jar Binks is the deciding vote to give Palpatine his power, to make him such a kind of a comical, ridiculous character at the very beginning, to then give him this power. To me, the puzzle doesn't put itself together very well. I think he doesn't have to be as silly and then become the success story of being, a senator or whatever he ended up becoming. I think you could have had him be a little bit of the comic relief, but not so much as to just want to sell toys to kids. And that's really what Jar Jar felt to me. Well, it's such a disservice, especially if you are going to use him later on in such an important, pivotal role. Obviously, the cons of midichlorians, I do agree with that. I do agree with, we've had 3 movies across in the 70s and 80s, and then 20 years later, you have to get some type of an explanation as to what makes a Jedi. With those movies being very much spiritual about what the Force was and what a Jedi is, and then to say basically it's science, I don't think connects very well. And they really don't ever address midichlorians again. I know there's some smattering of it here and there through some canon and some books and things like that, but for the most part, movie-wise, midichlorians is kind of just forgotten. And I think it's a warranted thing. I think the Force should always stay something, not just like your blood is better than your blood, so you must be special. That's not the way it works, and it shouldn't have worked that way. And I'm glad they kind of eventually, I wouldn't say retconned it, but they certainly ignore it. I do think I kind of hit on it earlier. I think some of the writing is pretty bad. I think George Lucas definitely wrote this. And again, Star Wars is for children. It always has been. I don't think it needed to be so dumbed down as to, it didn't know what it wanted to be. It was this galactic Senate issue early on with tariffs and trade agreements and treaties, and then becomes this silly slapstick comedy with Jar Jar Binks taking tanks down on his own, kind of fumbling through that. So again, the writing I think is very off. And I do believe, as excited as I am to have Hayden Christensen back for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I do think he had a very wooden performance throughout the entire thing. But again, that's really kind of happening in 2 and 3. I think Jake Lloyd being Anakin, I know he's got a lot of hate. He was a kid. I think he was not written very well. I wouldn't say cast very well, but some of the stuff they had him do, they really could have done a little bit something different. I don't know necessarily what, but I do feel like kind of where they started with Anakin and kind of the casting then to Hayden Christensen really kind of gave Anakin this kind of whiny child. It just kind of felt a little a little strange to me how they had dealt with Anakin even at an early age. So those are kind of my pros and cons of this. I really feel like a person who hates episode 1 really needs to kind of go back and watch it again. I know some people, and including me for a long time, when rewatching Star Wars, they won't watch episode 1. And I think episode 1 is not a great movie. I do agree with some of that. I do feel like episode 1 no movie was going to be as good and as well received as the originals. It always had a hard wall to jump over, and it wasn't going to be able to do it. So I think what we got, and we didn't get, the people that went in and complained, as we all did, was expecting an addition, a episode. They thought it was going to be episode 7 then. The prequel series was doomed to kind of fail to begin with. We knew how it was going to end and how it was going to go. We knew that it was always going to end with Anakin becoming Darth Vader. So it didn't seem as maybe magical, as we don't know how this is going to go. We knew we had the cornerstones. We had the outline already ready to go. Starting with episode 1, I don't think, and I think if you go look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of the ratings have fluctuated over the years, and I think it has been this renaissance of, hey, episode 1 wasn't as bad, hey, the people that saw it and liked it, were kids, and now they get a voice, and I agree with that. I think Star Wars is a beautiful thing, and it can be a lot of things to a lot of people, and I'm sure people will see this video and ignore it or say you're wrong, and that's fine. Because it's subjective, it's everybody's opinion, but I feel like there were so many good things in episode 1. I think we just kind of gloss over episode 1 and say, it's silly because Jar Jar Binks. And if Jar Jar Binks is your main focus of why you don't like it, I say kind of, I think who did it? I can't remember who did it. But somebody had kind of recut and kind of cut Jar Jar Binks out as much as possible. Go watch that one again, because there is some great in episode 1. Actually, I think episode 2 is worse than episode 1. I think episode 2 kind of doesn't do a whole lot. And I think it's very slow to get to the episode 3, which I think is overall a very good movie. Actually, a great movie in the lexicon of Star Wars. But I think episode 1, even still to this day, as much as there has been a renaissance, I still think it gets the hate it got, and I think it's not as warranted anymore. Go back and watch it. Some of the CGI doesn't hold up. Obviously, we're talking about a 20-plus-year-old movie. But episode 1 is not the worst Star Wars movie, period. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I hope you enjoyed this. It's me ranting and discussing Star Wars a little bit. Hopefully, maybe this brought a little light to you. If you're kind of on the fence or been on the fence, should I ever watch episode 1 again? I think you should. If nothing else, pod race, lightsabers. Let's do it. I hope you found this video enjoyable. I enjoyed making it. I love Star Wars. I love talking about Star Wars anytime I can. If you stop by, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you watch this video, I hope you give it a like, comment in there. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about episode 1. I hope this video finds you well. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.